All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome again. It is just about 5 past the top of the hour, so let's get started. Thank you all for joining us today at our Work Faster and Achieve More with AI on Azure webinar. We have some very exciting topics to share with you today, so we're just going to get right into it. And we'll start by looking at our agenda for this morning. So we're going to start with some brief introductions about Inova, about our partner Solvex. I will introduce my co-speaker, Natalie Corniel, and then we'll get right into it. We'll start with an introduction on AI concepts, very high-level introduction on AI concepts and AI services available on Azure. And then we'll double click on perhaps the most popular, the most noisy, I guess we could say, of the AI services, one of the most spoken about, the OpenAI models, specifically text models we'll be looking at today, and how we can leverage those to build our own chatbot solutions, both for internal and external use. And we'll look at one specific solution that we've built alongside Solvex that we can make available to your teams that does just that. We'll have some question and answer just in case, and we'll talk to you about some next steps and how you can apply some of the things you've learned here today. So let's get started. And I'd like to do that by introducing, as I mentioned, my co-speaker, Natalie Corniel. Natalie, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and about Solvex?
Hi everyone, Natalie from Dominican Republic. Nice to meet you. Yes, I'm a software developer in the AI department, and I'm work with in the company Solvex Dominicana. Solvex Dominicana is basically, as you can see in the screen, a cloud service provider. It's one of the most important enterprise company in Dominican Republic, and have a lot of different type of solution and services with software.
Thank you very, very much, Natalie. So Solvex is one of our trusted partners. We do a lot of Azure infrastructure software work with them, and they have an office filled with experts, actually a number of offices filled with experts on the cloud, DevOps, software, Microsoft 365, and more. So it's a pleasure for Inova Solutions and the Inova Solutions team to work alongside Solvex. That's very likely that many of you, if you're already here, know about Inova Solutions, but we still like to talk a little bit about ourselves. So my name is Nestor Diaz. I work as country manager for the Puerto Rico office of Inova Solutions. And Inova Solutions is a Microsoft partner. We like to say, of course, the best Microsoft partner in the Caribbean. We've been around for the past 15 years, and our performance sort of speaks for itself. It has earned us a number of accolades and awards across the years, including across our different offices, back-to-back Partner of the Year awards for the past 10 years. We have a team that consists of certified staff, pretty much everyone who works at Inova, from our salespeople to our marketing people to our sales support to our, of course, technicians, has Microsoft certifications from the fundamentals level for our more sales-focused staff to associate and expert level certifications for our tech staff. So we have knowledgeable people ready to be able to guide your organizations through Microsoft tools and solutions to be able to leverage those to create true business advantages for your organizations. In fact, that's baked right into our mission, which you can see at the top of the screen there. What we'd like to do, what we want to do is to empower your organizations, regardless of their sizes, to create business advantages by adopting digital transformation through, of course, Microsoft tools and solutions. We have our headquarters in Curacao, but we have local presence across the entire Caribbean with offices in Puerto Rico, Jamaica, Trinidad, and also in Ecuador. At our offices, we like to say we are local because we have people who live on the islands, who know the local culture, know your specific needs and the way business is done where you live. So we are here for you guys to help you apply the information you'll see today and really be able to leverage it in a way that's meaningful for your business. All right, that takes care of introductions. So let's get right into the meat and potatoes of today's session. And let's start by talking a little bit about AI on Azure. Of course, when we talk about AI on Azure, probably as we mentioned, the most popular name that we may have heard out there is OpenAI. And that's because although the development of AI stretches back maybe as far back as the 50s or 60s, If you want to get a bit creative with your definition of AI, maybe further than that, it's really had a sort of renaissance in the past couple of years and really jumped into the mainstream with, of course, the development of OpenAI's GPT model and their public offering of that model, ChatGPT. Well, Microsoft recognized the potential of OpenAI even before it really jumped into the mainstream, and it has established a strategic partnership with them, investing billions of dollars across a 10-year period in order to be able to secure Azure as the exclusive cloud for OpenAI products, and also, of course, be able to empower the research that the organization is doing, research that has already had fruit. And so we may have heard of some of the models available from OpenAI, things like GPT 3.5 and GPT-4, which focus on text. Of course, the forward-facing product that uses those models, ChatGPT, which you may have seen, Codex, which works specifically with code generation, things like DALL-E 2, which work on images, and more recently, you may have heard of Sora, which does realistic video generation. And of course, the common word across all of these models is generation. And that's because these are models that focus on generation of content, specifically original content. And so what these models do is we provide them with a prompt, and then they provide content based on that prompt. That prompt could be a text prompt requiring a text response, as we see here on the left. That prompt could be requesting some sort of information or assistance, like a tech support prompt. It could be requesting code or improving code, optimizing code. It could be requesting video or AI content. The common thread here is that these models would focus on understanding this common language prompt. I don't need to know any specific or special language to interact with the models, and replying in kind, in common, easy to understand conversational language. But of course, generative AI, the OpenAI models, are really only one part of the entire Azure AI ecosystem. And it's an ecosystem that we can really deliver or divide in four main pillars. And these pillars go from lower level to higher level. And of course, we will double click a bit later on that Azure OpenAI service. But let's put these different levels, these different pillars of services in a bit more context. And I like to have a different visualization from this one, which is that one you see on screen now. Because this one helps me understand better, one, who the services are aimed at, and two, how they fit within my organization. Basically, the higher level the service here, the higher up in the slide they are, the more ready to use the model is. So if we look at Microsoft 365 or Dynamics 365, we can look at services like Copilot for Microsoft 365 or Copilot for Sales, more recently Copilot for Security. And these are ready to go services. All I need to do is deploy a license and my users have the service available to them. There's no training I need to do. There's no configuration. I can do some additional configuration, but really they're ready out of the box. As I move further down the levels here, I may need to do a bit more configuration, but it will also open the door to greater levels of customization that are available to my organization. And so, for instance, I can leverage AI in Power Automate to help me build flows. And I can connect that to different data sources so that that AI is able to see more parts of my business and then enable me to automate more and more parts of my business. I can use AI in Power Apps to help me to build applications. But still, these are pretty much ready to go. There's only a little bit of configuration that needs to be done for me to really get started with them. I can go further down to services aimed more at developers. And there we have things like Azure Cognitive Services. We have things like the Q&A service, where they're really aimed at a more developer audience. I do have to do some more heavy-duty configuration and then plug that into some sort of front end because it doesn't come baked into the service, where then that service is able to be exposed to users, whether those users are my own employees or, say, people interacting with my website. And I can get further into lower level services that allow further customization, further contextualization of the AI, such as speech, vision, language services, form recognition services. That's where we'll have the Azure OpenAI service. At this point, these levels or these services require more work from my team, but they are still pre-trained models. I don't need to do training of the actual model itself. Until we get to the very lowest level, the Azure Machine Learning Platform, at that point, I am developing, I am training, I am creating my own models. And so it will, of course, require some more heavy lifting, but it provides the greatest level of customization. As we've mentioned, we really want to double click today on those Azure OpenAI services. And we'll actually talk about some complementary cognitive services, but we're really going to be focusing on those two, second and third from the bottom levels. So these two levels here are the ones we are going to be focusing on today's session. So let's first double click a bit more into that Azure OpenAI service. And let's talk a little bit more about what's available from OpenAI models on Azure and how you guys can get access to that. So all Azure OpenAI services are really about having these large pre-trained models, but with custom tuned parameters that I can use to personalize the behavior of the model itself. This can allow me, for instance, to give my chatbot, my model, different personalities based on who it's interacting to, what front end the user is using, how it authenticates, etc., etc. And there are several services, as we already saw, that are available as part of Azure AI services. So we have GPT 3.5. This was the original model that sort of took the world by storm, really focused on conversational prompts and responses. However, there's already the newer GPT-4. It's already in public preview, soon to be in general availability. It has a better performance, allows for longer, larger prompts, and so for perhaps some more refined responses as well. It is a bit more expensive. And so we also have a ChatGPT service. But wait, a couple minutes ago, we talked about GPT 3.5 and GPT-4 being the models and ChatGPT just being an application. Well, within Azure, we have this ChatGPT service, which is essentially a fine-tuned version of the GPT 3.5 model. It's specifically aimed towards this chatbot application, towards conversational access, and can provide a bit better performance and some additional optimizations over just the raw GPT 3.5 model. We also have models for code generation, image generation, and although it's not available, we'll probably soon have something for video generation, but we're not really going to double click on those today. We really want to focus on those generative text models. So let's talk a little bit about them, those OpenAI text models. What are they and what do they do for my organization? How do they work? Well, these are generative models, and we're not going to get into the mechanics of how a generative model works, the CS, the computer science of how a generative model works. I don't think that's really the focus of today's session, but they are essentially models that are designed to understand human language and respond in kind. Because these are cognitive services, they are at a level where we can do some tuning, we can do some contextualization of the models to personalize how they interact with my data and how they respond to my users. And more importantly, because they're built on Azure, because they're built on the Azure cloud, we have two very big benefits. One, they're built on the 6 pillars of responsible AI that Microsoft has designed. So they are built really to enforce the responsible use of artificial intelligence. And two, they are built with all the security that's already baked into Azure. And so things like role access, the rule of minimum access, principles for restricting how it interacts with what data and who can interact with these models, all of these tools are already baked into these services. Now let's talk a little bit about the different versions of GPT. Talked about 3 of them, and we're really going to double click on those 3. Now, of course, we mentioned GPT 3.5, GPT-4, and ChatGPT. So GPT 3.5 is really only available, I think, for a specific number of regions. It says Western Europe there, but there's a couple more. And again, it's this older, trusted, proven model that is able to take prompts from users and respond in kind in natural language. It's suitable for a very large range of use cases. However, GPT-4 is a little bit better. It has improved problem solving and reasoning. It has improved prediction capabilities, and then it can do a couple of additional things. For instance, if we were using it for working with code or for troubleshooting. It will improve essentially the deductive capabilities of that model to provide more accurate responses. It also allows for increased prompts. It has an increased token limit, and what that means is we can send more information to the model in a prompt, and the model can respond with more information in its reply. Now, there is this ChatGPT service, which is the one we're going to be focusing on in our solution, which is a sort of middle ground. It's a GPT 3.5 plus. It's based on the GPT 3.5 model, but it is fine-tuned for specific conversational use cases, specific chatbot use cases. It's a more economical version of the model. And although it's fine-tuned for chat, it has many, many more applicable cases, things like knowledge management, things like summarizing documents, things like analyzing large volumes of data and providing simple to understand or specific point in time responses based on that large body of data. And it's that specific capability that we're going to be focusing on when we present our chatbot solution. That knowledge management, I have this very large volume of information, but I need very specific pieces of it, and I can pay a human to do that. It takes them a while. A machine can maybe extract that information much faster. That use case is one we want to double click on. But it's not the only use case that we have. Really, we can build many, many different types of solutions leveraging these different models. So we can have, for instance, enterprise Q&A, again, managing large volumes of data. I have large documents that respond or relate to policies, and I need to understand how a specific policy applies in a specific scenario to a specific customer. I can have a researcher go and look through that. Maybe it'll take him an hour or two. Or I can ask a chatbot, which can provide the same information in a couple of seconds with sources that I then verify. Verification may still take me a couple minutes, but an hour or two down to 10, 15 minutes is still a very reasonable, very measurable improvement in productivity. We can use the models for things like summarization of articles. We can use it for augmenting my existing bots. Maybe I have a question and answer bot that has a specific list of questions that it can reply to. What are your business hours? What are your services? What are your prices? And then suddenly it receives an unexpected question regarding my, governance policies. Well, augmenting those bots with an OpenAI model can allow it to respond to those unexpected scenarios. We can also use it for assistance generating content, whether that's assisting our marketing team in generating flyers, presentations, writing letters, emails. We can also have it assist, say, secretaries in that same task. There are several different use cases, as we mentioned. There's 9 there on that slide, but many more that we can apply these models to. But here's where it gets interesting. It's not just about using the bots for those models, but about building on top of them to customize them. And that's where it gets very interesting. That's what really allows us to differentiate our brand, our use case, from whatever anyone else is doing. So what we can do is feed these OpenAI models with our own business data. We'll call this context. And then this allows the bots to answer questions and focus on the sources of their replies, or focus the sources of their replies on our specific business data. So for instance, if we have, again, a large knowledge base based on information and policies for our company, any question and any reply can be focused, can be contextualized in that data. How we craft our prompts, how we interact with this bot, also can serve to instruct these OpenAI models. They can help vary the tone of the response. They can even help vary the type of response that the bot provides. And this, combined, of course, with things like how a user is accessing the service, how they're authenticating if they need to authenticate to access, can allow us then to really build a unique personality, a unique differentiation for our bots. But the data we give it, that underlying first layer, is really, really key in building that differentiation. Of course, providing or keeping that data safe also then becomes important, because if my differentiation, what makes my business unique, is that data, well, that means I have to treat it very carefully. And so that's where those advantages we mentioned about being built on the Azure cloud, being built on the responsible AI pillars from Microsoft, having access to all those Microsoft 365 and Azure security, governance, and privacy tools becomes very, very important for us as users of OpenAI services. The OpenAI service also allows us to contextualize our problem domains. It also allows us to contextualize what exactly it is I'm asking the bot to do. So for instance, let's look at a prompt for OpenAI. We have Dana, who is working at Gourmet Ice Cream, and Dana is a chatbot, and the team uses that chatbot to be more effective, be more productive. So Dana understands the services that I have. It understands my products. It understands my locations, what my customers are. It understands the company's mission and vision. It understands KPIs and what my goals are for this current fiscal year. Now, Dana needs to be able to respond to my marketing team. And it needs to be able to respond to my marketing team in ways that are concise and, well, more importantly, useful. It has to have sources for its responses, and those responses need to be logical and really fixed and grounded on my company's policies. So Dana can then connect, of course, to different data sources within my company to be able to provide responses. But more than that, it can understand company policies to craft how that response is going to be provided. So it doesn't mean I'm asking about company policies. I'm not asking Dana, hey, Dana, what is the company's policy on customer communication? What is the company's policy on artwork in marketing? No. I'm asking Dana, hey, Dana, give me a tagline for the new ice cream shop that's going to be in Puerto Rico in Condado. And Dana is going to provide a tagline that matches what the type of people who go to Puerto Rico and Condado are. It's going to match what my policy for communication is. So if I have a more formal communication policy, it's going to provide a more formal response. If I have a more casual communication policy, it's going to provide a more casual response. And it's going to do all of this without having those details included in the specific prompt. And it's able to do that because it's able to understand the source data that I have connected it to. And that's very interesting when we're looking at chatbots. We're not just talking about chatbots providing responses from source from these documents, a search and copy paste, if you will, but actually understanding what this information means in context, how it relates to other sources of information, and how I'm going to use that to reply to my customers. That gets very interesting now when I'm talking about building a solution that allows my users, my employees, my customers to do more faster. So we've talked a little bit about what the models do, and we've talked a little bit about possibilities and how they work. But how can I actually apply this in a meaningful, tangential way? What does this mean for my business? How can I use it? It's too high level and I don't understand it. Well, no worries. Let's bring it to a more close to home level. Let's bring it to a specific solution that Solvex and the Innova team have ready and that can be deployed in your organizations as soon as today. Natalie, could you talk to us a little bit about the Bot SX solution?
Of course, I'm going to present my screen.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Nestor. So yes, for the next section, we're gonna see implementing chatbot with ChatGPT, how it works, and we're gonna do a demo showing our bot. We have a solution, our bot. So we're gonna see the functionalities, the advantages, the technology that make up the bot, and finally a demo. So first, we have different characteristic of the bot. He has adaptability to any customer. That means that you can implement the bot in different type of environment, for your company, for school, university, hospital, etc. So you can implement the bot in different type of customer, because we can teach the bot to be ready for those environments. We have a back office expandable. That means that we can configure different type of features for the bot. For example, sentiment analysis. We can add a different type of personality that we're gonna see in the demo, and other things. We have different type of functionalities of our bot. First, answer questions, semantic searches, multi-language, and multi-channel. The first one, answer questions. He gonna answer all of the questions that you said to him, based on the context that you're chatting with him. So then the number two, semantic searches. He will do a search. He will gonna provide you an answer, the most assertive answer, not maybe the whatever answer, just the assertive answer, even if doesn't have a specific question and answer. He going to ChatGPT to give you on a generative answer. So the third one is multi-language. You can configure your bot in different type of language, English, Spanish, etc. And the final one, you can have, he has a multi-channel. He's a multi-channel. So you can have your bot in Microsoft Teams, in WhatsApp, in your personal website, and others. Advantage. We have intention analysis, CLU, conversational language understanding. That is basically a service that analyzes the intention of the prompt. So then he will going to provide you the correct answer based on the contents and the answer. And the second one, we have GPT implementation, as Nestor said, is basically a feature that we use to generate data from through documents. Intentions. Our bot has two different ways to provide you an answer. The first one, we use a service, a Q&A service from Azure. That is basically a service that we can include different type of question and different type of answer, a specific question and a specific answer. And on the other hand, we have a GPT way. Basically, we have a different type of document that we train the bot, and we have the feature of semantic search with OpenAI. So in the middle, we have a service that is a conversational language understanding that, as I said before, is the intention. He will do, and he will analyze the intention of the prompt of the user. And in case the bot recognize this question is included in a Q&A service, he will go this way. If it is not, he will go into ChatGPT to generate this answer based off the document that you trained your bot before. This is the technologies that make up the bot. Basically, this is the architecture diagram. We start with a user prompt, as Nestor said before. We have connect the conversational language understanding service, and we have the back office to implement, I don't know, maybe some features like sentiment analysis, for example. And in this case, the bot going to analyze if it will go to Q&A service, or maybe he needs to go to ChatGPT in case he recognize the the question and the answer are specific and based and are included in question answering or Q&A service. He will go in this way. If it is not, he will go to the ChatGPT system that basically we have a cognitive search. Cognitive search is a service from Azure of cognitive services that we do the semantic search based on the context that you said before that the chatbot recognized. So we have three different microservices because we have also an API gateway to do load balance. So it's scalable. So for the
Natalie,
demo,
before moving on to the demo, could you step back to the architecture briefly?
of course.
So this is very interesting because we mentioned earlier that OpenAI is that sort of new kid on the block, but it's also one of the more expensive services. So note in the architecture that we're also relying on some additional cognitive services. And although we're not going to get into how each one is priced, we can do that in a more extensive one-on-one session. Suffice it to say that a Q&A service, for instance, is cheaper than sending queries to OpenAI. So part of what we've been doing as we design this architecture is design it in a way that's cost optimized for your organizations. So if we can get away with using the cheaper service and providing the valuable answer to the customer, it'll go to the cheaper service. If we need the additional horsepower and brain power of the OpenAI services, we'll leverage those. And so not only is it a scalable solution, as Natalie mentioned, it's also a cost optimized solution. Natalie, we'd love to see the demo.
Yes. So for the demo, we have already deployed a chatbot interface here to show you how it works. So as I said before, we can configure different type of features in the back office, not even sentiment analysis only. You can also configure different type of personalities. For example, in this demo, we have an example. We're using a student's personality, and the other one is a customer. I'm gonna explain. First of all, this chatbot was training based on a document from Microsoft Learn that was Microsoft Windows Server 2022 License Guide. So he will going to provide an answer based on this context that we trained before. So for example, I am in the section of student, or I have selected the student response. You can configure your bot in different type of channel that I said before. So we can have the feature of interact for a student in your personal website, for example, and the customer act as a salesperson in your Microsoft Teams, for example. So for the first one, the student feature, if we say, for example, tell me about Windows Server 2022. He will provide an answer based on this question, even if you write it wrong. And he will going to provide the text of the answer based on the question. He was doing a semantic search in this document. So this is not generative information in the web based on the document that we trained before. So if we go to the customer section, for example, and we say the same thing, tell me about Windows Server 2022. He will act if he as a salesperson. So in the part of the student section, he gonna act as a teacher. Oh yeah, the Windows Server 2022 is a license guide. But in the section of the customer, he will provide you more information about the service. For example, he gonna give you the benefit of for your company. It'll be example if you have 25 as user and etc. And he gonna provide you the different type of terms of the service. So we have these two different personality. We configure multiple type personality, and we can deploy this application in different type of channels, in WhatsApp, in Microsoft Teams, in your personal website, etc. All based on your needs. So this is basically the functionality of the chatbot. Nestor,
Awesome.
if you want to, yes.
Let's talk a little bit more about that multiple personality feature that Natalie mentioned. This is very interesting because, as we mentioned, we can contextualize our chatbot and we can give it information that helps it understand how it should interact with different kinds of users. And we see that here. So for instance, you can see that the second paragraph right there in the customer example, it starts with one of the key features. So the way we've contextualized this bot to interact with customers is to highlight key features. And if you read over the paragraph, you'll see it mentions security, it mentions hybrid use, it mentions a couple of other features. Meanwhile, we've contextualized it to speak with students in a more professor-student style relationship. So it's going to focus more on what is Windows Server, what is its history, how did we get to version 2022, and then what are the unique pieces that separate 2022 from previous versions. But we can do so much more. So for instance, we could have a bot that does briefer responses for customers, because probably customers have short attention spans. They want to get on my website, they want to get out. And so it can be briefer when it's talking to customers. We can have a chatbot that mentions specific internal processes and procedures when speaking to my internal customers, say embedded in a Teams channel, but only focuses on the higher level service offerings when interacting with a customer. So if a customer asks about service XYZ, then the bot will respond, service XYZ includes A, B, and C. But if an internal employee asks about service XYZ, then the bot is going to respond with service XYZ includes A, which is the responsibility of Natalie. It includes B, which Nestor can tell you about. And it includes C, which Marcy and Adriana are responsible for. And so we can add these additional context to these different personalities so that the chatbot, a single instance of the chatbot, is able to interact with different communities and respond in kind.
Additionally, you can train the chatbot with multiple PDF and multiple documents, not only one.
That's a very good point. So when we train our chatbot, the Bot SX service allows us to really use pretty much any document, any information store. So we could be talking about databases, we could be talking about Word files, we could be talking about text files, we could be talking about PDFs, as long as they contain text, not just images. But even then, there's additional things we can do to really use almost any type of knowledge store that you or your organization have. Maybe it's a KB that I've built on IT Glue. Maybe it's a list of SharePoint documents. Whatever it is, we can feed that into the chatbot and use that data store to teach and contextualize your bot's responses.
That's it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Natalie, very much for that demo. I'm going to go back to our PowerPoint. Here we are. And really, that is most of what we wanted to show you today. So we've been able to learn, let's do a bit of a recap. We've been able to learn about AI services on Azure, and we saw that there's a bunch of stuff available, from all the way at the bottom level, creating my own models and training them, to models that are ready to go and I can just contextualize, plug into my services, my apps, my channels, and start using, to really ready to go solutions like Copilot for Microsoft 365. We saw that the OpenAI models fall into that level where we can provide some contextualization and we can embed them into our solutions, and how that allows us to build architectures like the Bot SX architecture that is then able to, one, be cost optimized. We use the cheap services when we can get away with it. We use the more powerful services when we need that additional horsepower. Two, a solution that is scalable. We are depending on microservices and we have separate instances and we have load balancing so we can scale up or down as needed. Three, it's a solution that is customizable, and not just customizable to my organization, but customizable to my audiences. And so we can create these different personalities that are able to interact with customers, with my internal users, depending on who that audience is, who that person is, what their role is, and what channel they're interacting or they're using to interact with my chatbot. And finally, we were able to see that it's flexible. We can connect this chatbot to pretty much any data store I may have, from single flat files to text files to Word documents, PDFs, SharePoint document lists, Azure Blob Storage, you name it. There's so many different data sources that we could use. So we have spoken for a very long time, about an hour at this point, but we'd love to hear from you guys. So do you guys have any questions? Marcy, Adriana, do we have Q&A?
Yes, Nestor. We have a question from Christian Torres. Thank you so much for asking your question. I don't know if you can see in the Q&A, Nestor, but his question is, these personalities are limited to a few types or also can be technical person or a lawyer personality, for example?
Natalie, do you want to take this one?
Yes, of course. Yes, Kristen, you can configure different type of personality in a school, university, hospital, software factory, and all you want.
Really, the limit is our creativity or our Azure budget, but there's no hard limit to the number of personalities. We can create as many as we need. Any other questions, feel free to drop them into the chat or into the Q&A. If you are a person that would rather talk, then feel free to raise your hand and we will allow your microphone. You have a couple moments.
We're so sorry. I first need to allow the microphone. 1 second.
No problem. And if we have someone raise their hand, we can allow it then. It's been a lot of information that we've tossed at you. We realize it's a lot of information, so feel free to ask away. We have a couple more minutes.
All right, so I have allowed the mic for attendees. But I do have another question from Cambo. Cambo, thank you so much for asking your question. His question is, when adding data sources or updating existing data sources, is this instantaneous that the bot scrapes for the data, or is this a manual intervention?
Perfect. So maybe Natalie, I'm not sure if you can take this one or if we want to pull in Oscar. So could you talk a little bit about that vectorization process at a very high level, right? We don't want to get into the computer science of it, but at a very high level, the vectorization of that data, how it's pulled into cognitive services?
Yes. First, yes, it's automatic. So we have a couple of documents, for example, and we're gonna train a lawyer chatbot. Okay. So if we update the data, he will gonna give you the answer based on the document of the new data automatic. We don't need to go to configure another thing, etc. So basically the process of upload the documents, we have a back office where we can send the documents, upload the documents, maybe 1, 2, 3, depend on your need, and he will update the data he will gonna save the data in a vector database, and this content it will going to send them to the chatbot. And in this way, we're gonna see the answer edited actually in our bot, in Microsoft Teams, in WhatsApp, our personal website, where we have the chatbot already.
Awesome. Now, Natalie, if we have a very large volume of data, maybe we have terabytes worth of data, do we have any way to sort of see the progress of the the analysis, the ingesting of this information?
Yes. I'm sorry. Yes. Once we have all the documents already to be uploaded, we have the chance to see the progress of the uploaded document. But we need to recognize if you're going to upload a document with, I don't know, maybe 25 megabytes and other with 2 megabytes, it will obviously going to be faster the 2 megabyte document.
Of course. So Kimbo, I hope those different sort of perspectives answer the question. There is, as part of the architecture, a back office component that your team and our team can access to help configure, contextualize, create these personalities, and feed the data to the bot. And so from there, we can add these data sources. It automatically ingests them. Of course, the larger the volume of data, as Natalie mentioned, the longer that might take. But we're able to see the progress of the ingestion, and there's no action needed on your part other than simply uploading the data to have it start working. Of course, if the data that we're uploading is for a specific personality, a new personality, then there may be some work to do, but it's all manageable from that back office. Hope that answers the question. Any additional questions? We have a little bit more time still.
Yes,
How does the
we
bot
have
handle
one
when
more
there are 2 or
question.
3 documents? Oh, this is a very good one, actually. So Natalie, how does the bot handle when there are 2 or 3 documents that can have different answers for the same question?
Easy. Semantic search.
Could you
We
expand a
go
little
to
bit on?
throw those.
Thank you.
Yes, we go to throw those documents, and if we have the same one question, maybe the answer of this question is in the document number 3. He will go to this document to get the answer.
And that cognitive search it understands context. And so that becomes very important. So if, of course, there's 2 or 3 different answers because the answer varies depending on the personality, the bot is going to be able to recognize that. And it's going to be able, based on how we design these personalities, to understand what personality it has to use to respond. Similarly, if the answer varies based on context. So what flavors of ice cream are available in that ice cream chatbot that we saw? And hey, that depends. Maybe on Mondays there are some offers, and on Fridays there's another one. Then it also understands that context, is able to recognize the criteria it requires, the day of inventory availability or whatever it is, and give the right answer based on context. Very great questions. Very great questions. Thank you very much, guys. Any additional questions on capabilities, the bot, anything we've seen thus far?
Just FYI, if you have a question, you can also unmute your mic and ask your question.
All right. Well, if there's no more questions, we still have a couple minutes. So if I'm going to talk about a couple more things, if a question comes up while I'm talking, feel free to add it to the Q&A or to the chat or to raise your hand, and we'll let you unmute as well. But it could be that we're shy. We don't want to reveal the secret sauce of how I'm going to use the chatbot in my company, so I can't ask the question in a room filled with other people. Well, that's not a problem. Let's talk a little bit about next steps and maybe how you can get more information about how this tool could be applied to your specific organization. And the answer to that is relatively simple. Let's do a proof of concept. Oh wow, that is certainly a picture. We did not speak about this, Marcy, Adriana, but it is what it is. Book a proof of concept with us. Ignore the picture, scan the QR code. We can have a session on one-on-one session. Sorry, that threw me off. One-on-one session where we discuss your specific company's needs. We can talk about how the bot could apply to you, but more importantly, we can talk about a proof of concept. What is a proof of concept? It means we can deploy a smaller version of the chatbot trained with a subset of your data. And we can do that maybe in an environment that you host. We can do it in our environment that we host. We can, on occasion, get funding from Microsoft to run these proof of concepts. Now, that's based on Microsoft's approval. So it could be that Microsoft says, yes, here's the money, run it. Could be that Microsoft says, you're out of luck, you have to pay for it yourself. So it's on a case-by-case basis, but we can evaluate, request funding, and if possible, then leverage these funds to give you guys essentially a trial period of the solution. So you can use it with your data, see how it behaves, and see if it's a good fit for you guys. So feel free to scan the QR code, book a proof of concept meeting with us. We'll have Natalie in there with us. We'll have Oscar join us as well. And then we can take a look at your specific case. If there are additional questions that you have, we can have that one-on-one more private session, and then we can talk about the secret sauce without revealing your secrets, maybe to people outside of the company. But then there's a couple of other things we'd like from you. Again, we're very, very thankful if you joined us today, and we'd like you to take our survey. Let us know what you thought about the event. Was it too technical? Was it not technical enough? Do you want more demos? Do you want more information on how the tools work? Do you want a longer Q&A session? Do you want less silly pictures, more silly pictures? Let us know. Scan the QR code, give us your feedback. We do read each and every single piece of feedback that we get. We use it to personalize our future events. So please fill out the survey. Let us know what you thought. And again, thank you very, very much for joining us today. We realize your time is valuable and you can choose how you want to spend it. So we thank you for spending it with us. And once again, have a great day. Thanks, guys.